Assalamu alaikum, my dudes. You guys like this format for Farid, so let's try it with your boy as well. In today's video, I will be addressing Apostate Prophet's feminist projections on the textual sources that pertain to women, and show how he misconstrues the whole male-to-female narrative in Islam and fails to use common sense when reading the mentioned hadiths.
No matter what statistic you check, family law inequity, property rights, discrepant government behavior toward women, average status of women, female genital cutting, etc., the Islamic world is always the poorest. It's sad.
Ridwan deceptively displays statistics from only one website in order to make it seem as if problems of female rights occur only in Muslim countries, despite the fact that the same website provides charts wherein these problems occur in majority non-Muslim countries. The problem is these charts are misleading, and an educated person will never take for granted one source of information and ignore the rest. Of course, many of these countries won't have the time to develop specific laws pertaining to women because they're too busy trying to get rid of bigger problems such as poverty or trying to provide education for kids. Take as an example Mauritania. Most people in Mauritania are scattered across the deserts, and the ratio of literate people varies highly from place to place. The problem with Ridwan is that he's trying his best to simplify real-life problems that are caused by centuries-long geographically, historically, and politically determined obstacles that a society will have a hard time to cross regardless of their religious affiliation. Never mind that though. Let's look into other articles that speak about abuse of women globally, and in the West such as these. If we go into this article on women's rights in France, we'll see that when it comes to rape, 12% of all women in France have either been the victim of rape or of attempted rape. This works out as 250,000 women a year, a figure that has not fluctuated much over recent years. But in the last decade, the number of people convicted of rape in France has dropped by 40%. When it comes to murder, in 2017, 130 women were killed by their partners, ex-spouses, or cohabitants, according to the Ministry of the Interior. That means 1 every 3 days. The number was 119 in 2018, and 30 women have already been murdered by either a partner or an ex-partner in 2019. Please do note that this article was written earlier this year. However, instead of searching through literally hundreds of pages of various books that provide us with information of human and female rights abuse across the entire globe, such as this book whose editions are published annually, let's look at a simple map that shows us which countries have signed the fundamental and most important document that is meant to be a legislation of prevention of female discrimination. The map in front of you represents those countries that have signed and agreed to carrying out the implementation of the Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women in green, those countries who have only signed the document but have not acted officially upon it in yellow, such as the US, and those countries which did not sign the document such as Iran, Sudan, or Somalia. Please do note that Iran is a majority Shia country, meaning that it does not represent the main body of Muslims, while the Sudanese and Somalian people cannot really be blamed for lacking laws that address human rights when they're facing problems of inner and civil conflict, as well as corrupt politicians, all of which is simultaneously preventing them from forming a properly structured government, let alone determine specific rights of gender or religious groups. So the main point of all of this is, most countries in the world, including Muslim countries, have acknowledged this convention, which includes prohibitions of honor killings, rape, and etc. Now the most important thing that exposes Ridwan here is this map, which represents those countries which enforce the propositions of the mentioned convention. As you can clearly see, this is a problem in most countries of the world. A person might think that the West here is clearly dominant when it comes to women's rights, but it is no wonder that the same countries that have colonized other civilizations for hundreds of years, thereby causing the roots of all such problems, are now claiming to be the ones who should be followed in their superior way of life in order to make it seem as if all those years of massacre and stealing people's wealth across the globe was justified due to these countries being inferior in morality. Seems very convenient, doesn't it? And if you take a look at the map, you will notice that in reality, really, most of these countries are not Muslim, unless Ridwan thinks Mexico is a Muslim Sharia country. It wouldn't surprise me.
I want to center this talk around a well-known report of Muhammad about women. The most well-known narration in this regard goes that Muhammad said, "I looked into the fire, and there I found the majority constituted by women." This is a well-known hadith and a sad part of Islam.
The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stated that the majority of the inhabitants of hell are going to be women. And Just because this is the reality of what will happen does not mean by default women are evil or more prone to sin. This is simply the reality of what will occur. Even granting the fact that the Prophet ﷺ pointed as to why this will occur, such as the sin of ungratefulness to one's husband, in no way is this an argument that female nature is inherently evil or that women inherently desire to disobey their husbands. Clearly, Ridwan fails to understand what a general statement is.
This is Islam. But let's go even further. The narration of women forming the majority of hell is only the beginning. Muhammad also explained why this is the case, and he schooled women about it. Once, Allah's Messenger went out to the Musalla of Eid al-Adha or al-Fitra prayer. Then he passed by the women and said, "O women, give alms, as I have seen that the majority of the dwellers of hellfire were you, women." They asked, "Why is it so, O Allah's Messenger?" He replied, "You curse frequently and are ungrateful to your husbands. I have not seen anyone more deficient in intelligence and religion than you. A cautious, sensible man could be led astray by some of you." The women asked, "O Allah's Messenger, what is deficient in our intelligence and religion?" He said, "Is not the evidence of two women equal to the witness of one man?" They replied in the affirmative. He said, "This is the deficiency in her intelligence. Isn't it true that a woman can neither pray nor fast during her menses?" The women replied in the affirmative. He said, "This is the deficiency in her religion." There are several issues in this entire report. He approaches women and says that women will be a majority in hellfire, which sounds like a good tactic to make women feel fear and obey and give more alms.
No, Ridwan, this is the exact opposite. It is simply advice to women in order to protect them from the hellfire. The problem is, most people don't like to deal with the reality. If reality is such that a prophet of God foresees that most people in hell will be women, such a person being an exemplar of humanity will logically do their best to prevent that from happening. The problem is Ridwan and most Islam critics fail to have a metaphysical understanding of religion, despite the fact that metaphysics is the basis of any religion. Saying that this is controlled through fear might as well be used against the whole religion itself, since both men and women are at the end of the day being equally warned about hellfire. The point of being warned about hellfire is not to drive people in it, it is to save people from it.
He says that women are ungrateful to their husbands. This is in alignment with the Quran, which says that women are supposed to obey their husbands and can be beaten if they repeatedly show arrogance. It's definitely not in alignment with our modern and more intelligent understanding of humans, rights, and society.
What is defined as arrogance by most Muslim scholars here is not the woman refusing to put enough salt in the food or refusing to not go out. It is perpetual indecency and flirting with other men, or physically and mentally abusing one's spouse. Such behavior is addressed by first counseling, and then after a longer period of time, if that doesn't work, separation from the bed. And then after a long period of time again, at the end, one time hitting in boundaries of the Sharia, which by the way limit this to a pretty much light tap on the shoulder, is permitted. However, the interesting thing is, Aisha radiallahu anha, who you love to mention so much, narrates that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never hit a woman. Interesting.
He says that men can be led astray by women, and Islam is known for primitively imposing certain restrictions, like the hijab, on women in order to prevent societal corruption.
No, Ridwan, nowhere does the hadith say women are blamed for the sin. Both the woman and the man who is fooled by a woman into sinful action are equally sinners. The point was that women have the ability to make even the smartest men go crazy after them. That's it.
He says that a woman's religion is deficient because she can't fast and pray during her menses. And am I the only one who has an issue with this? How can this be cited as a reason why more women go to hell? Women bleed and are by their religion not allowed to do certain practices while that natural, Allah-given thing is happening. And that's why more of them go to hell? As if they chose that?
Nowhere does the hadith say this is the reason that might lead women to hell. It states that the two main reasons are cursing and ungratefulness to husbands.
He says that women are deficient in intelligence, and he explains a Quranic rule by this, according to which in the contract of a debt, 2 men should be called as witnesses, and if 2 men are not available, then 1 man and 2 women should be called, so that if one woman errs, the other can remind her. He says this is because women are deficient in intelligence.
No, Ridwan. Again, you keep misquoting the hadith. The hadith says this is the deficiency in her reasoning, in her aql. Not that this is such because she's deficient in intelligence, which would be more ilm or knowledge in Arabic. In a strictly textual sense, as far as a Muslim is concerned, this is the only deficiency a woman has and is determined by Quranic and Sunnah sources pertaining to her reasoning faculties. As for everything else in life, such as using logic or high mathematics, there's no naqli or textual reason for a Muslim to believe a woman must not be able to attain equal amount of intelligence or ilm to a man. It is perfectly fine to believe that women are equal to men in this regard. The main point that I'm trying to say here is that there's a difference between aql, which is the faculty of reasoning, that might be deficient in senses of testimony that are outlined by the Quran, and the ilm, which is general knowledge. There's no such text that says that women are lesser in ilm or knowledge anywhere in the Quran or Sunnah.
Before we come to whether Muhammad was right or wrong, let me present another example to show how this kind of thinking was manifest in Islamic society and the fundamentals of Islam. In the History of Al-Tabari, a very important book explaining the Islamic view of creation, prophets, Muhammad's life, and history, it says that Allah had the obligation to make women stupid because of Eve, and that if it weren't for the affliction of Eve, women wouldn't menstruate, would give birth more easily, and would be intelligent.
So, unlike Ridwan, I actually decided to look into the chain of this hadith, since I understand that Tabari has all types of narrations from authentic to completely fabricated ones, which is completely fine, and this is why the book is meant to be for experts and not for laymen. But if you look into the chain, you'll see that it's from Yunus to Ibn Wahb to Ibn Zayd. Ibn Zayd died in 182 after Hijrah. He was not even a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, so we cannot be sure of what the origin of this story actually is. It is most likely taken from the Bible, considering the fact that the next few passages in the same book that Ridwan is quoting speak about the snake having its legs cut off and being cursed into slithering on the earth, which is, by the way, found where? In the Bible. But it honestly doesn't surprise me, because I'm pretty sure that AP actually thinks we should take the Bible as a credible source of historical information. An important thing to remember is that all this relates to a particular specific law, and that a woman's testimony in hadith is accepted even if she's alone in her narration. The proof for this is the fact that the companions took from Aisha radiallahu anha alone, and the hadiths narrated only by herself were accepted as sahih or authentic. So at the end of the day, the Islamic tradition is not saying that a woman is less logical or less intelligent than a man. But I'd like to end with this. Most of these complaints against Islam based on women's rights are derived from feminist ideas of equality that, ironically, started as an ideal of women imitating or equating men in their rights, not as an inherent right that women should have. The biggest irony is the feminist philosophy takes the male as the standard and contradicts itself in terms of a woman's independence. Islam was not revealed for us as a guidance to equality, but it was revealed as a guidance to truth, belief, and practical solutions for inequalities. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this vid. Hope you guys enjoyed another destruction of Rico's arguments. And make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. And I'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum. And by the way, stay away from Ridwan.